Negative and positive is really what this world is made up of. We know that when we're going through the human experience, there is no way the body and mind can sustain negativity. The health issues alone will show up eventually. And it's not impossible, but to sustain high level positivity 24/7, that also takes a lot from your reserve, and you need time to rejuvenate. So this is the power of neutrality. It's this resting ridge where we get to catch our breath.
Welcome to the Daily Soul Bytes Show. I am your host, Bolaabimbola, frequency alchemist, life coach, and energy practitioner. And this is the show where we interview guest authors, coaches, and entrepreneurs in the fields of spirituality, psychology, and leadership to share their insights for the expansion of collective consciousness. And today I have a very special guest all the way from Connecticut, Brennan Ballet. Welcome to the show, Laura.
Hello, Bola. Thank you. Super excited.
So am I, because we have so many things in common. And I'd love to share our perspectives and to really get a sense of the expertise that you offer in that area of empowerment. And I'll read your bio before we start. Brennan Ballet is a global ambassador for life transformational empowerment and human awareness. She empowers individuals to unleash their full potential through her expertise in neuroenergy coaching. With her revolutionary book, The Science of Empowerment, Laura guides her clients to dissolve past challenges, reframe mindsets, and embrace unlimited potential, creating lasting happiness and well-being. That is so beautiful. Thank you for joining me again, Laura. It's so nice to have you. I would love to know, Laura, how you got to this place where you are now an expert in neuroenergy coaching, because that concept, we were speaking earlier when we started, that concept of energy is still not very common. And there are all these different, approaches to connecting to that divine truth that we are. So I would love to know how you came to this place where you're now so passionate about empowerment, especially the science of empowerment. How did that journey begin, and how were you galvanized into this path?
Yeah, thank you. You can probably tell I get very excited when I have an opportunity to speak on energy, and you and I were conversing before. We are energy beings, and so many of us forget this. Really, we become these patterns of thinking, and we're judgment beings, right? We're insecure beings. All of these labels and these structures of energy that we take on, and they really limit us into tapping into our full potential. My brother Christopher and I were always allowed to have this beautiful space when we were kids to think bigger than we actually were. We grew up thinking we were superheroes. My brother went off to become a USA gymnastics coach. We have a neuromuscular training facility. And I just picked up on this very unique way of taking mindset development and moving it into the coherence of heart and consciousness energy, and how we can connect all three of them together. So I just started writing this book, really at the supportive urging of my brother. We study a lot of quantum. We love the quantum field of all is possible. But I wanted to create something that bridged almost that gap of higher level thinking and information, but that we could apply to our everyday life. And I'm a regular kid like everyone else. And I wanted to know, how can I show up differently? How can I evolve to my higher and best self as a wife, as a mother, as a friend, and then as a coach, as a speaker? And even though we study and we research and we collect data, I think there is this beautiful authenticity that comes from journeying on that path of self-discovery. And that only for me can really be kind of explored through energy, because again, energy is in everything. It's in our mindset. It's in our personality. It's in our attitude, right? It's how we react or respond. So I wanted to express this connection that I've always felt to the universe, and that I believed we were here for higher purposes, and not just to go through the day, but to become aware of why we are going through the day in the way we are going through it, and how can we maybe slant it more towards a positive experience than a negative one.
Mhm. I love how you have a brother as well that you can share this passion with. I'm also the same. I have a younger brother who we're so close. My mother always says we should have been twins, and so it's always so nice to have somebody who has known you for many years and you've grown together. So I can imagine that is a powerful soul contract. It's not something that just happened by coincidence. And,
Yeah.
journeying with somebody who knows you from the beginning and who is able to kind of share that with you is such a special, special gift. So
And
yes, I love.
all the good and the bad, right? All the
Oh my
beauty,
goodness.
lovely,
Oh my goodness. When we have differences in our opinions or differences in how we handle family issues, that is a big blowout. Everything falls apart when we agree, it is quite powerful. Nothing can stop our agreement, stop what we have agreed on. It has to be that way because, both of us, where two people come together, I think this is the thing about energy, isn't it? There is a co-creation that happens when you have someone in that external reflection that is also agreeing with you. Because at the end of the day, we know that we are the only ones in our universe, and everything outside of us is really a reflection of what is within us, of the different personality constructs within us. So yes, having somebody that is resonating with us at that deep level, even when we fall out, we can't fall out for long because we need that connection. So it's quite powerful. So thank you for sharing that about how this has led you to a place where you've now created this powerful institution with your brother. And I'd love to know a bit more about what I wanted to explain a bit about energy, actually, first of all, before I dive into your science of empowerment. What is energy to you? How would you describe that concept of what energy is? Because we are all energy. I agree with you. How would you describe it? So those who are more inclined in other parts, for instance, the religious parts or other parts, in fact, because there are also atheists who don't believe in anything at all, which is okay. It's not about right or wrong. It's just about the differences, and it's about choice and alignment. But I did want to, get your perspective on what is energy.
Yeah, and again, even when you were saying if you don't have a connection to God force or universal energy and you're just kind of floating around in the world, I think to look at everything as a structure of energy and how is it contributing, how is it adding value to the collective, it allows us to open up our heart center and become more compassionate. So if you don't have a direct pathway to a faith or some belief system, but knowing that you are an energetic being, it can lend itself to not feeling so isolated and alone at times of challenge. And for me, again, energy, it's just something I came into this world being very attuned with. I remember talking to my grandmother about like the blades of grass and looking at each one as an individual piece to the whole collective. And it was just the way my brain was wired. And I was fortunate to have, again, some family support that allowed me to free think and really advance my way of thinking rather than limiting that thought process. And I just think if we can look at, again, our attitudes, our personalities, our habits, our behaviors, and ask ourselves, is it negative, positive, or neutral? What energy am I infusing into all those experiences? We now start to become more self-accountable and we become more aware of how we can add value into every interaction. So I think energy gives us almost this very open doorway. It's a welcoming mat to I don't have to choose that way because someone told me. I don't have to become that style of human because it's what my parents were. I get to now choose my field of energy, choose my vibration of how I want to show up in the world. And I can do this through the awareness of different energy fields. And we all know in quantum, right, there's only negative and positive. The beauty of what we did at the Science of Empowerment is we placed neutrality into this formula so that it helps people understand that you can't always move from a negative energy to a positive energy, but you can go from negative thinking, negative behavior into a more neutralized state. And once you're there, then you can jump over to a more positive way of being. So I think just to gain new perspective and look at things as if they had an energy force in them, how then would you interact? And that goes to our compassion to other people and animals and nature. And how are we looking at the life force, i.e. energy, that is contained within everything? So I just think energy to me, it's force, it's nature, it's universal, it's God, it's whatever word fits in your personal vernacular. But we all understand that even if you do not believe in something, you still connect to some things. And in those things, ask yourself, what is the structure of energy in how I'm relating to it? And how can I use that to elevate not only myself, but the collective?
Mhm. I love that. I love that definition. And yes, this is something that is existing
Yeah.
in every ounce, in the non-living and the living things around us. That is what I've come to understand. Even our cups, it's all about frequency of vibration, and that is what turns things into matter. So I definitely really resonate with that. And I remember when I got in touch with energy healing, my son couldn't sleep at night. And this was something that my brother said to me, Reiki energy healing will help him. And I tried all kinds of modalities, therapy. I tried medication, and it just wasn't working. And the Reiki practitioner only had to send, the Reiki at the set agreed time from a distance. She didn't even have to come to the house. And it was the first time I slept through the night. That was where I got soul. It was straight away. And sometimes there's such a resistance within us that we really cannot, even when we have a logical explanation for it, to actually, begin to work with it in our day to day. It sometimes takes a try. It sometimes takes, and there is no way it fails. When we begin to connect with it, we begin to see how powerful we truly are. And it's always there. This is the fiber of our being. And I've really come to love it. I would love to touch on something you said about moving from negative to positive, because there's that neutral space that is where our presence. This is where we are when we are present. This is where the higher self dwells. There is no judgment. It's not about thinking of the past or thinking of the future. It's just a place of infinite wisdom. That's that place of neutrality. And I would love to ask you, really, going from that negative to neutral, because you mentioned that you don't need to go to positive before you can get to neutral. Could you just explain a bit about that? Because I've come to understand that negative space is where we all have that resistance. And in order to move into that negative space, there's this kind of swing into positivity to negativity, positivity to negativity. And more we can, with practice, using the right modalities, come to a place of neutrality. So, but if we are going straight from negative, I'd love to know your perspective about going from negative straight into neutral.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm so happy to hear your personal experience with Reiki and that energy that wasn't even in the same room. This is the power of opening our mind, expanding perspective, and really elevating our present condition so we can welcome in knowledge and insight and tools and healing modalities. And just to be able to have an authentic experience, I think just lends so much credence to what we're talking about. One of the reasons my brother created this very unique formula, and then I came in and we worked some of the small little, I will say, kinks out of it. But this was really for me, and I always give him a heartfelt acknowledgement. I loved the way these 5 principles were set in motion and the way that he worked it out. And then when we looked at, again, quantum fields and science, if we want to add some scientific, backing to this, negative and positive is really what this world is made up of. We know that when we're going through the human experience, there is no way the body and mind can sustain negativity. The health issues alone will show up eventually. And it's not impossible, but to sustain high-level positivity 24/7, that also takes a lot from your reserve, and you need time to rejuvenate. So this is the power of neutrality. It's this resting ridge where we get to catch our breath. And whether we do that through meditation, journaling, Reiki, massage, healing, or someone like me, where I just envelop myself in reading and new sciences and how I can help contribute to elevating our global family. This is this moment where when we have insecurities and self-doubt, or a dis-ease is holding on too long, and we can't really make that maneuver from seeing ourselves completely out of the darkness into the light. The power of neutrality allows us to have an understanding that it's okay how we are feeling in this present environment, but I'm going to learn through outreach, through support, through community, how I can neutralize that energetic structure of negativity and just have a moment to allow the mind, body, consciousness, all that coherence to start to regulate itself. And then I can go into a more positive state. And the more we practice the awareness into our negative states of being, the more readily neutrality becomes a superpower. And then the skill to just elevate into a positive state of mind, a positive way of being becomes very, very, very easy. And I'm saying this because I've practiced this for years. It's how we train our clients. This is something that does not have to be complicated. And it doesn't have to really feel disruptive. It's a very beautiful extension, I feel, of our humanness. We've just been trained to think that we're opposite of this. But to move from negative to neutral starts to really give us that sense of confidence in our own way of being and our own way of thinking, so that we begin to rely less on outside influences and more on the power within.
That's beautiful. So if you had a client, just to get a sense of how you work with your clients, a client who has anxiety, some fear or threat about something that's going to happen or something that's happening, and it's all about the beliefs and the thoughts that we're holding, as well as some experiences as well. It's actually quite experiential. How would you support your client who has come to you with anxiety to move from that place of negativity into a place of neutrality?
Yeah, love the question. And this is how all clients begin. Full transparency, I do not work with deep trauma clients. I think there are such gifted healers in this world that I would send that person to. And I have not taken on clients to send them. So when we have real deep addictions, drug, alcohol, when there's been sexual abuse, very very rooted neglect and abandonment issues, there's a process that comes from that. So as an empowerment coach, as a thought energy coach, I really align with clients that have already done some of the work. So they're a bit more primed to move up into that next level of self-awareness and self-evolution. But what I do is we run through the formula. Always. So we begin to look at the 5 principles and we start to work from there. And quickly, the principles are awareness, willingness, accountability, critical thinking, and energy. And so if someone comes to me and they give me a sense of where they are, what they're feeling, we will start to ask and explore their awareness. What is it feeling like now? Where do you think that came from? And you go into that part of it. Then we go into what are you willing to do about what you now are aware of? Then we go into the accountability. Let's stop the judgment and the outside blame, not dismissing the accountability of someone that did us wrong or hurt or harmed us, of course, but I'm moving through this very quickly. And then once we have that accountability, right, we know I'm in the power seat of choice. This is my opportunity to really build confidence and self-compassion on how I can empower my life. And when I say empower, I mean empower my life. So then I can then empower, all of my experiences. Now I move into the 4th principle, critical thinking. This is where we look at the emotionality that creates the patterns, the habits, the behaviors, right? That forms the personality that tends to keep us stuck into the rooted issues that are lifelong challenges. Now I ask my client to think with higher level intellect. Now I want you to move into this power seat as if you have already healed, you have forgiven, you have released, you are now a self-actualized thinking human. Now, how would you look at this situation? So we're going to suspend all of the attachment and we're going to look at it from a high level. It is amazing when you give the space to people and you allow them to release that anchor to that challenge or that trauma, how they can view it. And in that moment of observation is where they start to begin their empowerment. And then we go into energy, negative, positive, neutral. Which one are you? And immediately they know I've been in a negative state, sometimes for decades. And now I know that when I run through these principles, I begin to neutralize that negativity. And even if I stay at neutral, it's a beautiful thing because eventually I'm going to move back into that power seat of choice and I'm going to choose a more positive way of being in the world now. So that's a very fast explanation of the formula and how it works with clients. And it's amazing. I tend to not work with anyone longer than a year. It's just something I've done because it moves. And it's just amazing when they understand that they can kind of move into that, again, that observation tower and detach themselves from the personality that has convinced them that that is who they are. Who you become is not who you are, right? Who you become is who you choose to be. And there's a big difference there. So the formula and my style of empowerment coaching through how we think about thought and the attachments to it really does help people transform rather quickly.
Thank you for that. That's amazing. I love the way you start with awareness, self-awareness. That self-awareness is so key to be able to understand that there's a system around us. There's a system of things around us that we can come to understand. And the accountability, which is really where we are coming to own and coming to choose and align to what really we prefer. This is what my book is about, Daily Soul Bytes. This was published this year, the audiobook, and last year, the Kindle and the paperback by Abimbola Press, a division of A House. And Daily Soul Bytes is really talking about perspectives. Different perspectives within us. We have higher perspectives that are based on love, And we also have lower perspectives that are based on fear and threat and survival. And at any point in time, we can recognize within us whether we're holding higher perspectives or we're holding lower perspectives. And we can choose to align. It's not about right or wrong. It's not about what is better. It's about what we want to achieve. Our intentions will require us to hold certain perspectives if we do want to achieve our best outcomes in those intentions. So it's really about being accountable, flowing through life as a victim or flowing through life as an empowered being. So I totally love those steps. Getting to that place where you're now able to detach and you're able to see what is happening from that higher self perspective, because only the higher self can be an observer. The physical ego self cannot be an observer, because that physical ego self is entrenched in all the dynamics going on, in that reality, the experience that it's, all the different personality constructs are created. So moving to that space of the higher self is really where the neutrality, the energy of neutrality is really powerful there. So I love that. I love that. So I'd love to know a bit more, Laura, about what your clients can expect once they go through those steps, those 5 steps. What is the difference in the way that in the way of being? What is that new way of being? That place of neutrality. What is that about? What does that contain?
Yeah, what's really interesting and unique about my particular style of coaching is I have these exploration sheets that every week before a session, there's 3 very empowering questions. So they look at a specific challenge or a possible let's say, lack of the ability to release themselves from a thought process connected to a past experience. And so all of these questions each week are written in a certain formula to start to stimulate and activate that journey of what an empowered life can look like. And when they begin to understand that neutrality is not only an option, but for me, it is a birthright within the experience of the human condition. Then they realize that staying in that one state of thinking that's kept them anchored into this one way of being was a self-inflicted, limited thought. I have to be this way because I went through this. My father was an alcoholic. My mother abandoned me. I've been divorced 3 times. Therefore, this warrants who I am. And part of the process, when you run through those 5 principles, and within each principle, when you start to create that exploration into what an empowered life can be for that particular client, they begin to understand that there is a power that resides within them that was just pushed down because of all these outside experiences. And most of us understand that so much of this that happened to us, especially in our childhood and our young adulthood, it wasn't our fault. We are not to blame. However, when you get to a point when you understand that you can make a choice to help neutralize the thinking pattern that's kept you in this, what I call a state of stagnation. You're just kind of existing. Now you can see the lights start flickering. You can feel that they're like, I've got a way out. But then I remind them, this is not just about a way out. This is a way up. And as you said, that higher level, that observation from that higher perspective. And this doesn't have to be a religious thing. It doesn't have to be a scientific thing. It can just be an understanding that built in to the human experience, you have the potential to think differently, to choose differently, and to begin to redesign a new personality that is filled with everything in its opposition of what you have been through. So I tell all my clients, do not settle for your present condition. You and I together, we will collaborate and we will create, just as a guide, This is on you, but I'm here, right? Those little bit of guardrails to just help so they feel safe. They're allowed to feel strong enough to be vulnerable. They know that they have a system in place. And it is just, as a coach, it's amazing what happens. And it's not like a regular therapy when you go in and you kind of backtrack to all of the emotionality of all of what's kind of you've carried with you your whole life. This is really about showing up and making a set point decision. I want to create a different life. I am ready. Don't know how to do it all, but coach, you and I, we're going to do it together. And they know that from the discovery call, right from the first exploration sheet. It's actually a prerequisite to read the book and journal throughout the book before I start my first coaching session. There's so much in the book. The book is nothing about me. It is really a manual that allows the reader to see that part of themselves that maybe they've never met before. They start to come up and realize, I can be powerful. I can gain confidence. I can learn how to neutralize the negative patterns. And that in and of itself is an empowering step. So I hope that answers a little bit of the question.
No, that is, but it's a different way of thinking.
Yeah.
You are, and I love that that is something that your clients can really experience, because initially, we know we've all got all this, that 60,000 to 90,000 thoughts in our head every single day. And, those thoughts, no matter how transformed or how awakened you are, those thoughts are there. And it's about how you come to just allow the thoughts to be, and how you come to really have a different way of observing them. So that in and of itself is really a new way of being. And we know that those thoughts are repetitive, and we also know that they are mostly negative. So it's really powerful it's a different sense of thinking. And I wanted to know if you connect with the heart, if part of your work, or if it's mainly to do with, because that is enough. That can take a decade or even 2 decades sometimes to really get to understand the thoughts, and to know that these thoughts really are not about me, so that is a really powerful approach. But I wanted to know if there's a connection to the heart, because the mind and the heart are two different entities. And I always believe in the way the heart really connects with love, how there's compassion. And I'm sure throughout your training, there has to be an element of love, because we only change and transform through love, not through judgment. We know from children, they will not learn if they do not believe that you love them, or they do not believe in your goodwill. So there has to be an element of love in that. But I wanted to talk more about that, because there's the mind-heart connection. How does that work with your program?
Yeah, and I love how you just said it's almost this natural part of how we think the world should be. We value love coming at us or into us or being shown to us. And I think something that was really unique about my upbringing is my grandmother taught me how to love myself. And I have never forgotten this. And this is one of the things that I work diligently with my clientele. Heart energy. Think about the heart. Boom, boom, boom. The beat. It's energy, energy, energy. And is it soft? Is it fast? Are you panicking? Is there anxiety? How is that rhythm of your heart connecting to everything else you do? So yes, the heart is at the heart of an empowered life. It is such a way that we as humans express everything. So bridging that journey between thought processes and heart coherence is at the foundation for me of mind development. You cannot have a strong, secure, neutralized mind without a fully engaged, healed, and open heart. I just don't think it's possible. So you have to work on both of those, because what happens when we have trauma, right? Our heart breaks, right? the rhythm is disrupted in our heart, and then it sets a whole different pattern. Now the mind begins to think differently as well. But for me, because we're energy beings, that heart rhythm was disrupted first. And then the thought process of how we dealt with it is what set everything else in motion. So we definitely will go into the feeling, the sensation. How are you feeling? Where do you feel that in your body? How does that play out on a day-to-day basis? What are you connecting to? And very importantly, when you do connect to either the break or the need for healing within the heart coherence, what's the thought process right behind that? So what's going on between the two? Is it a constant thought of, that person did me wrong, I don't trust anymore, or I didn't have a father, or my mother neglected me, and that set up all these patterns. So really finding almost like the musicality between the two, or the dance, or the rhythm. Again, we all have our unique vernacular here, but finding that beautiful kind of movement of how can we soften some of the pain in the heart, and how can we neutralize the pattern of thinking so that the two can become closer and stay separate. It's important, but can start to beat more in coherence. So that's a little bit of how I look at the heart and mind.
Yes, I love how you've put that. And my final question, and this is also an opportunity for you to give us any last words on what is the science of empowerment?
Yeah, I love this. It really sums up at the very last line of the book, and it says, "Do not glance at the power, become the power." And that is how I look at the science behind designing an empowered life. And this is meaning release the need to place everything outside of self, blame or happiness, success, lack of confidence, whatever it may be. Release the kind of the routineness of outside of me and begin to create, cultivate, design, engineer the internal being. You have everything needed to live the most beautiful life. And I truly believe that coded within our DNA, no junk whatsoever. It's untapped potential. It's untapped brilliance. Go in, keep going deeper, keep exploring like a scientist would, right? Find the research, look at the data, what fits, where does it fit, why does it fit there? And always keep in mind behind this exploration is the discovery of what an empowered life can feel like. And so this is a little bit around the science of empowerment. It's taking, yes, new sciences, right? Consciousness, elevation, collective evolution, really self-actualized thinking processes. It's really emotional intelligence. It's all the things that, we hear and read and see out in the world, but it's putting a formula behind the process of how to discover and really sustain an empowered life. And through that J3 equals E formula, and that's the 5 Jekyll principles. That's what the J is for. The 3 is for negative, positive, neutral. Which energy are you? And then the E is empowered. So when you put those 5 principles into play, you position yourself into the power seat of choice of which energy you would like to be. Neutral is, again, a superpower because then you can spring right up into positivity very quickly. This begins to equal E, an empowered life. So that's a bit of a brief explanation around the science of empowerment.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. Thank you, Laura. That is a really powerful explanation. And I love how it really resonates with with that concept of, life really is about what we are curious about, the things that we are curious about, and the things we have a zero tolerance and become very diligent. It's a daily practice. Very, that's what the scientist does. There's that need to do things step by step with very critical thinking, very critical way of understanding how one thing leads to another. So developing that understanding of life, of self, requires a diligence, a scientific diligence. So I love that. But thank you so much, Laura. Thank you for me today. It's been really wonderful to have you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
And I would like to thank our audience for joining us today and really encourage you to connect with Laura Brennan Ballet, because Laura is talking really about how we can begin to release the limitations of the physical ego mind. And this is what we all have to do. This is before we even become spiritually awakened, because spiritual awakening is really, the identification of us as spirit beings, as energy beings. But knowing that we have this physical ego mind that is really quite entrenched in fear-based beliefs, and this is the challenge, the adventure that we've all craved for, in this lifetime. Laura is really helping us to move through that and enable a realization of self, a deeper realization of self, with a very unique approach. I love that. J to the power of 3 equals E. That is powerful. Thank you so much, Laura. And I'd love to invite everyone to really grab a copy as well of Daily Soul Bytes, my book, and also to connect with us every Wednesday for new episodes on the Daily Soul Bytes show, and ask you to subscribe and like and share. And I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Daily Soul Bytes show. Bye-bye.